Three, two, one. All right, everybody. We're here with David Lecko from Deal Machine. Did I say your name right, by the way, David?
You sure did.
How many people a day call you David Gecko by accident?
I actually say it, I don't hear it often, but I say it's Lecko like gecko. And that usually helps people understand.
Awesome. So you kind of came into on our radar. We heard Mitch Steven talking about your app, and I downloaded it and tried it. And for me, and I'll tell you my journey and how we discovered you and how it's working. I'm sure you've heard the same story a bunch of times, but we do what's called driving for dollars as real estate investors. So you're driving around town, taking a different route every day and trying to find houses that, may look like they need some repair. They might be vacant. And typically, if you're maybe take a picture of the address, jot it down on a piece of paper and head back to the office and start doing some research, right? Well,
right.
Your app called Deal Machine allows you to take a picture of the house and then it kind of automates everything from there.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really slick. So before we kind of get into that, though, I'd like to hear kind of your journey and like what led you into real estate investing and having any interest in it at all, and kind of tell me a little bit about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. Would be happy to do that. So it all started 2+ years ago. In 2016, I was actually reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, playing the cash flow game, which is this online board game that you basically have to get out of the rat race by, buying houses and investments and getting your passive income above what your living expenses are.
Awesome.
So I started looking for a house, my very first house that I could buy below market value and then fix up and have a really good cash flowing rental. So I heard about this thing called driving for dollars, and I set aside a few hours after work to go ahead and look for those properties. The struggle was actually following through with all those leads. So I'd spend the time writing down the addresses after I got off work, and then I just wasn't following through. And I realized that after several weeks of this, I drove by one of those houses and somebody else was actually renovating it.
Oops, missed out, huh?
Yeah. So then I went home and I looked up all those addresses. It wasn't even that many. It was like 50. And I then put together mail. I wanted the mail to be really personal because I had already spent all this time, looking for the properties. So I had like a photo on each one, and it took a few hours. And I was like, man, this really stinks. And so I'm a software developer. That next weekend, I made this really basic version of Deal Machine that would just look up the property owner and then put together a piece of mail and send it out. So that's how it all got started.
Awesome. I love how, my business partner and I come from a technology background as well. So anytime that there's a piece of technology introduced to make things more efficient, we definitely love that, get out of the paper and the pen and paper side of things.
Yep.
So I was going to ask you, maybe you can just kind of dive into a little bit about how the app works, and then I'll ask you some questions about how it's utilized. So it obviously looks up who owns the property, creates a mail piece, like it typically is a postcard, right?
Yeah. So, if you already know about Deal Machine and you're listening to this, we've had some updates, but the very basics of the app are you actually, take a picture of a house. It tells you the owner immediately, and you can press a button to start sending a direct piece of mail to the owner. And that mail has the picture of the house on it. So it's going to be personal, something unique they haven't seen before. And that's what the app does.
Awesome. And I love this as a way to, I guess I see it as a way to supplement what you're already doing. If people are doing direct mail, driving for dollars and using Deal Machine to make driving for dollars easier is really it's a supplemental method. So you're hitting houses that you might be missing might not be on your list already. And then, as long as you're driving around and you see a potential lead, you might as well shoot them a postcard, right? And that's how I've been utilizing it, at least. Is that what you typically see?
Yeah. It also lets you leverage your time. So you can have other people drive for you under your main account.
All right.
Yeah. And then the other thing it does we haven't talked about is it does a skip tracing instantly. If you press the enhanced search button, it'll give you every phone number, email address, and other address related to that property owner. So you could just call them right there on the spot too.
Oh, wow. That's pretty slick. Yeah. I mean, imagine how powerful that is. If you call someone and then you happen to catch the owner and you say, I'm, parked outside of your house right now. What are the chances you'd be able to come down and talk to me about it, or at least find out if there's any interest or any potential, lead there at all?
100%.
Yeah. That's pretty slick. That must've been, tell me about the, not to get too far into the weeds software wise, but that must've been, how hard was it to develop the back end of that where it can, I mean, I know most of this is all publicly available, but it's no easy task to make it as seamless as pushing a button.
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, the very first version of it was put together in a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, I just found a picture of what it used to look like on my old computer and I had to laugh. It didn't look pretty at all.
Yeah.
And all those details, of making like a full product take a lot of time. So we have 3 full-time software developers that work on it every day now.
Oh, wow.
And it still doesn't do much more than that on the surface. I mean, we're very focused on the driving for dollars, but there's all kinds of, extra time required to make it a great product. What was your question? Yeah. What was your original question?
I was going to ask you about how, if you run into problems at different municipalities, counties, cities, I mean, do you have to develop different ways to extract that data from every county?
So we started off that way, and then there's 3,000 counties. So then we started buying data from people who already had that integration so that we could work all across the nation right away.
Mm-hmm.
And then we still have that ability to go directly, with our own service and continue to add counties as we see fit. So yeah, it's a combination of ways that we get that data.
That's crazy. I mean, that just, I can see working in one county, it would be hard enough, but trying to adapt that extraction and, just the way that every county stores everything differently, even just in our little area in the Fargo, North Dakota, surrounding counties here, literally every county is different as far as how they keep track. When we're looking up tax records and stuff, how they track all that data is just, it's crazy. So, I mean, that must've been quite the task.
Oh yeah. So it really opened up the doors because people would talk about it and they would say, well, does this work in this place? And saying no was really terrible because I was somebody who really wanted to use it. So making the decision to go ahead and open it up nationwide was crucial. And so glad we did that.
That's great. I mean, because now, as from growing the app, now you have access to real estate investors all throughout the United States. And you guys kind of run a subscription model, right? You pay a monthly fee for access to have the access to the app.
Mm-hmm.
And you just pay like per piece.
Yes.
Out kind of like, just if you're doing direct mail, you just paying per piece. And then the skip tracing is just another little extra charge.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to do the enhanced.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah. So it's $49 a month for the basic plan.
Mm-hmm.
And that gives you unlimited properties. You can see exactly who owns them. You can also see, like, a lot of times how much mortgage they took out, what the sale price was, when that price was. So that way, if it was sold recently, you don't want to spend mail sending it to them probably,
right,
for example. Yeah. And then the postcards and the skip tracing are 99 cents. And we actually offer a 20% discount on those on our next plan up, which is for enterprise, which is people with, 2 or more full-time acquisitions type people on their teams. It also lets you have unlimited deal finders. So a lot of those bigger accounts will just post an ad on Craigslist for somebody who wants to get paid driving their car and then funnel them straight through to their Deal Machine account, have them sign up and start adding properties.
Imagine that. Okay. So, we're a 2-man team here, but imagine if you had people out there driving around all the streets you're not hitting and mailing out postcards and tracing, and for all the same monthly fee for the app, it's really, they're only getting charged every time they mail out an actual piece.
Right.
And I mean, the return on your investment is crazy. If you get any leads that are workable from that, is a crazy high return. So on just the cost of doing that mailer. So what an effective tool to supplement your normal, bandit signs and direct mail and things like that. Because, bandit signs are fine. And you can see one right behind me here, but it relies on the homeowner finding you and taking initiative. This way you're actually reaching out to them directly.
Right.
You might be the only person reaching out if they're not on a list that you've bought. Or
100%.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah, then you don't have to compete against anybody else on, price of purchasing their property.
Yeah, if you're the only one talking to them, I mean, that gives you way more leverage than usually, especially compared to the MLS or even some of the more heavily purchased absentee owner lists, high equity lists, all the typical lists that people buy. If you're in a saturated competitive market, you need any advantage you can get.
100%.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I found myself using it quite a bit when I'm driving around. It is definitely slick. And the URL for people is just DealMachine.com. Is that right? And then where do they get the app? Is it in the normal app store?
On the Google Play Store or on their iPhone and App Store.
Awesome. Now, what market are you in?
I'm in Indianapolis.
Okay, now that's a crazy, hot, competitive, cash flowing market. So how have you utilized? I mean, do you utilize your own app daily too, as well, or how do?
So I actually pay someone $15 an hour to use Deal Machine for me under my account.
Awesome.
And so far, I've purchased 5 rental properties here. 3 of them were like the classic rundown, found it with Deal Machine, did a full renovation, and then refinanced it using the BRRRR method, which stands for buy, renovate, rent it out, and then refinance it. Yep. And it ends up being a free house if the deal is good enough.
Yeah.
Meaning it's fully cash flowing, brand new interior. And when you refinance it, you get all your money that you put into it back out into your pocket.
For acquisition and rehab. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can do it again.
Yeah. We call that infinite returns.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. That's killer. If you can pull those off, do as many as you can find, right?
I know. I just got 2 right next to each other, actually. They're on the street called Grandview Drive.
Okay.
And the first one was like $44,000 is what the purchase price was. We put 60 into it and it appraised for 160.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and then 2 houses down, this big tree fell and it had been there for a whole month. And I was like, what's going on here? This is a hot lead. Nobody's going to leave a tree falling on their house for that long unless there's something wrong. And so I finally got a hold of the woman. The Deal Machine app said she actually lived there. So on that lead, I actually ended up calling her. And her number was the house phone. I could hear it ringing when I called her. And I was like, crap.
You were outside?
Yeah.
Outside the house and you could hear it?
Yeah. I worked down the list of numbers and then ended up getting a hold of one of her daughters. And I was like, hey, I'm Sharon's neighbor, because I bought the house 2 doors down and she's got a big old tree that fell. And then she's like, oh my gosh, yeah, let me connect you with her. And we met at the house 2 days later. She had moved to a different city to live closer to her daughters. She's like, yeah, I just haven't gotten around to selling it. And now it's really overwhelming. And so we ended up buying that one from her. So I've got 2 rentals next to each other, which is really awesome.
Yeah. And then, I mean, you found them not through sending her a postcard, but using the, what do you call it? Enhanced search. Yep. So you found some phone numbers and you're able to reach out. I mean, that's a perfect testimonial to the power of the app, because she would have never shown up on an absentee owner list if her address showed as the house.
Right.
So she wasn't going to get postcards.
Yep. Because I found out about it because I was literally there just visually qualifying something isn't right.
That's awesome. How has Indianapolis been the last year or so? You said you've been investing since 2016. I know it's been historically a very hot competitive market, but what's your sense of how things are going down there right now?
Yeah, well, I bought my first house in 2017, and then I got the last 3 this past year, and I've got 5 total. I think that there's always good deals in any type of market. I'll buy a house in any market condition as long as it's a good deal. So I still see some of the bigger players here will typically like over the winter, they would like stop their mail and just use that time to follow up with their old leads. And then they're now restarting their marketing again going into the year. And so I happen to have done the same thing just because I was waiting for those two refinances to come through. But it's crazy. There's multiple people, and there's just so many houses out there that there's plenty of opportunity for a lot of people.
I love Indianapolis just because the price ratio is really in the investor's favor.
Mm-hmm.
Which much like a lot of places in the Midwest and Fargo, where we're located is a little bit tighter. Prices are a little bit higher, compared to rent.
Yep.
But we can still usually hit the 1% rule here with acquisition and rehab. So, that's kind of our target. And you can exceed that a lot of times in Indianapolis, which is great.
Yeah. I mean, so for those that don't know, the 1% rule is if you buy a house for $100,000, you want the rent to be at least $1,000 a month because that's 1% of the purchase price.
And that means it'll typically cash flow positively. Yep.
Yeah. So I do that too. You can get a lot better if you go down to like the $600-700 rent price range.
Mm-hmm.
You can get those houses for like $30,000. So that's like 2+%. I stay away from anything that is below $1,000 a month just because I self-manage my properties and I want to deal with people that are going to be a little bit more consistent.
Yeah, the demographic, it gets a little tougher.
Right.
Definitely. Awesome. Well, this is great, David. So tell people how they can learn more about Deal Machine and get signed up and start using it to make their own driving for dollars much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a 14-day free trial. You can go to your app store and search Deal Machine or go to DealMachine.com. Either way will just work fine. And then you can start a 14-day free trial right there. We actually give you, actual credits to use so you can try out the mailers for free as well during your trial. And you can try out the skip tracing, with the enhanced search button as well at no cost just to see what it's like and if you like it. I think you'll really like it though.
I do. I'm a testimonial for its effectiveness myself. One thing I wanted to point out too and this is so huge in real estate investing. You were mentioning like people stop doing mail and they just working on their follow-up. Well, there's a follow-up piece in Deal Machine built in, right? And I actually forgot about this, and which is great because it's just happening automatically without your involvement, which is perfect. So basically, you can, by just checking another box, you can tell it to just keep sending postcards.
100%.
I love that because we know the follow-up is key. And a lot of times you don't do a deal until you've talked to somebody 7 or 8 times, 7, 8 or 8 postcards, up to who knows how many, but that consistency is huge. So I love that piece. Just checking a box and it just keeps shooting them postcards without your involvement. So once you kick it off, it's just going. I love that.
Yep. Yeah. So one of the updates that we've made is not only can you control how often those postcards go out, if you want to use the follow-up feature, you can actually program a sequential mail campaign using different looking postcards with different messages on it that you can totally set up and customize yourself.
Oh, awesome.
So that's a new thing that people like to do and experiment with.
If you want to get like a little bit more aggressive on each postcard to try to get a reaction, that type
or
of
even just change up what you're saying in general. Yeah.
Awesome.
You never know. And I always feel like the results are pretty good if you're just simple, like, hey, I'm interested in buying your house. You can make an offer, call or text me if you're interested. But I've seen some other really creative messages too, and that allows you to set that up however you want.
Yeah, we've tried everything from very aggressive sounding things, that are almost look like they're a tax notice or something, like they better respond, almost scary kind of postcards, all the way to just pictures of me and my family saying, we're in the neighborhood and we love purchasing in this neighborhood, real nice, oriented kind of messages. And really, I think you just have to try all kinds of different stuff and see what works in your market. Up here in the upper Midwest, people are fairly conservative. They don't like to be scared into, they react pretty negatively to some of the scarier posts.
Yeah, I know.
They respond to the more family oriented type stuff where we're at.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. The thing with the picture and like the message of just like, hey, we're in the neighborhood, or hey, I'm interested. That's way more my style personally. I like those a lot.
I love how Mitch Stevens said he likes to take a picture with himself in front of the house.
Yeah, he does.
That's great because then, that's the person that you're talking when they call you, that's the person you're talking to on the phone. Hey, that's my picture.
Right.
That's a great way to personalize it too.
Yep, that's a really good idea. A lot of people have tried that, and I think it works pretty well. Anything you can do to make it more personal is a win.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Well, David, I really appreciate your time today, joining us on the REI Rookies podcast. Make sure everybody checks out DealMachine.com. We'll have all the links to everything he talked about in our show notes here as well. And thanks to David.
Thank you so much, Josh. Thanks for having me.